Hello, everyone. This is the SIG Cluster Lifecycle Cluster API office hours on Wednesday, December 7, 2022. We follow CNCF code of conduct. So that basically means be nice to each other in the meeting. We have a meeting etiquette. If you wish to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. It's under reactions. Let me drop a link to the agenda. And if you want edit access to the meeting notes, you have to join the SIG Cluster Lifecycle mailing list. It's linked at the top of the document. Feel free to add your names to the attendee list, and let's get started. Are there any new folks in the meeting who would like to speak up and say hi? It's generally tradition around here for the new folks to let them go first. So if there are any new people, please use the raise hand feature and please say hi. I don't see any hands. Moving on, open proposals. Okay, we have two open proposals. Both of them are already merged. Does anyone have any points on this? Can we go ahead? I don't see any hands raised. Moving on to the discussion topics. Kristen, you have the first one.
Yep, I just wanted to highlight an issue which was, I think, reported today, which points out that the latest released cluster cattle version is not able to provision providers which have a major version bigger than V1. So in this case, it's Kappa, which has the example. The reason for that is the Go proxy client we introduced to reduce the number of API calls to GitHub. The TLDR is there would be a fix by requesting also the other versions, like for major V2 and V3 and so on. But 24 SEMA outlined that this may also have an issue in general when a provider does not follow the Go rules for modules, like the one based on the example CupKK, which would have the issue that the Go proxy will not be able to list even the V2 or V3 tags if we modify the method here. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight it here, that it gets attention. Yeah, it's okay for me to move discussion then async to the issue maybe.
Yeah, sure. The issue is already linked in the agenda notes. So folks who are interested, please feel free to drop your thoughts on the issue there and continue the discussion on the GitHub issue.
Yeah, maybe the last important point, there is a workaround. The workaround would be as listed in the agenda, export the Go proxy equals off environment variable, which disables the Go proxy stuff. So yeah.
Christian, so in the meantime, what do you think about adding this into our CAPI book, the release 1.3 CAPI book, while we have a fix, because right now it's broken, right?
Yeah, happy to do.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this? Okay. Moving on, Joe, you have the next one.
Yeah, I've got two. The first one I think is pretty quick. The state of the machine pool machine looks like it's still sitting in lazy consensus. So I wasn't sure if that's moving forward out of proposal. Or what the status of it, I guess, was.
Cecile, go ahead.
I was hoping Matt Boersma would be here to speak to this since he authored the proposal, but he's not. So I would recommend starting a Slack on a thread on Slack so he can chime in, but I don't want to speak for him, but I think from what I know, the proposal merged. It took a while, and I think then he opened the PR with the implementation that was work in progress. So that's still in the PR queue, and I think that work kind of got put to the side for a bit because of other priorities that intervened. So I believe he's planning on revisiting it after the holidays, but he might gladly accept some help if you're looking to make that move faster. So that's what I know. I'll let you follow up with him to get more info though.
Perfect. That's awesome. Thank you. And then my one other thing was, and I think we've got a few people who've talked about it or helped out a little bit on it. But we, on the cluster API side of things, have an issue where the machine pools and the instances cannot atomically update because our machine pool has the concept of a Kubernetes version, and then the instance itself has the image that it's going to use that is going to have the Kubernetes version in it. And so I'm not sure if anybody else is running into this or how they, if anybody has a possible suggestion on how to approach this. But I think we're going to get stuck in a really bad place if we can't upgrade these atomically.
Jack, go ahead.
I don't know if I can easily repro that exact thing, but we probably can because that sounds familiar. So Joe, I would say hook up with Matt and myself and maybe just a call out to others, and we can maybe hop on a Zoom at some point and kind of walk through this and see it happen in real time, and then maybe start making some plans for how we might make this better.
Okay, it'll probably be my colleague Sham who reaches out. He just couldn't be on the call today, so I wanted to bring that up.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more thoughts on this one? Any more questions, comments, concerns? Okay, moving on to the next one. Florian, you have the next one.
Yeah, hey, thank you. There were some discussions lately about reverse communication pattern from the workload clusters to copy. So essentially establishing the connection from the workload cluster side so that we can operate clusters in disjoint networks. And I wanted to ask if there is interest in scheduling a meeting to discuss the possible approaches so that we can move forward with this topic.
Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. It sort of feels like this would be good for a new feature group. It seems like a significant change and potentially a lot of people interested. So I wonder if we take the same approach that we did with managed Kubernetes and start a group so that we formally meet to discuss it.
Yeah, I think that would sound good to me. I'm not experienced with how those groups are run and managed. So what's the best way to get this started? Shall we just coordinate over Slack and see who is interested and set up some recurring meeting?
I guess the first thing probably would be to open an issue to track this and then start a Slack thread referencing that issue so that people have a common place to go back and look at, and we can continue the discussion from there. Basically use the issue as the tracking issue. Killian, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, there is an issue open on this. Let me find it and I'll add it into the Google Doc.
Thank you. Are there any more questions, concerns, thoughts on this one? I don't see any more hands raised. Moving on to the next one. Abhijit, you have this.
Yeah, thank you, Raj. So this is an issue which we have been facing when we enable autoscaler with the classic cluster. The replica field set kind of conflicts with the reconciliation cluster topology reconciler, which goes and reverts it back to the default replica set, which is set in the classic cluster. So this thing I had discussed on the autoscaling SIG also. Michael is aware of it. So the one of the ways to fix it is that bringing in the or making the classic cluster reconciliation loop aware of these annotations, cluster autoscaler annotations, so that it skips the replica part when it's reconciling. So this is one of the options. I wanted to know, there was something similar done for the machine pool also, where a new annotation was introduced. So wanted to know the thoughts about from the forum, that what would be the right way to fix this?
Mike.
Yeah, Abhijit, I think what you're proposing sounds good to me. Like if we see the annotations for the minimum and maximum size for the autoscaler on the cluster class, we need to make sure we set the replicas to the minimum to start with. And then, yeah, I think what you're saying, if those annotations are there, we need to not manage the replica count for those machine deployments or whatever. I don't know how tricky that is, but that sounds like the right approach to me.
Okay, cool. Actually, I experimented with changes like that, and I got very favorable results. So I'll post that those set of changes for review, and then we can take it further from there.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, sounds good, Abhijit. Thanks for that. Are there any more questions, comments, concerns on autoscaler for classic clusters? I don't see any hands raised. Killian, you have the next one.
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight this in case anybody has come into contact with it. I don't know what the extent of this issue is, but we had a couple of reports in Slack at that thread of issues with the cluster cache tracker in 127 and 130. Haven't been able to replicate yet, haven't managed to get a replication case from the people who reported it just yet. But we did make some substantial changes to the cluster cache tracker in, I think, 126 or 127, I can't remember, that are also in 1.3, obviously. So if anybody has seen these errors, particularly with larger clusters and creating a large number of clusters at once, it would be great if you could respond to that thread or dump it in Slack, but anything that can help me reproduce it, because I haven't been able to get to grips with it. And this could be a very critical bug because the cluster cache tracker is kind of used for everything. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that, but I don't really have the details on it.
I see only a Slack thread here. Is there already an issue for this?
No, because we don't really even have enough details for an issue yet.
Okay, sounds good. Are there any questions, concerns, thoughts on cluster cache tracker issue? I don't see any hands. Moving on to provider updates. I don't see any entries under provider updates. So let's move on to feature group updates. Jack, you have the first one.
Right, so this is a totally new thing. So hi, feature groups. Hopefully folks are okay with feature groups as a concept. Started with working group, didn't want to collide with the Kubernetes concept of working group, so kind of piloting feature groups. So feel free to add any thoughts if you think that is misleading moniker or something like that. But we had our first discussion around managed Kubernetes. There were a lot of folks present, super optimistic about where this is going. We'll be hanging out for a long time, so hit me up on Slack. I'll add some links there as well to help get involved. And I also plan to send out a blast in the mailing list today, which I haven't done. So just wanted to announce that it seems like we're official now.
Awesome. That's great. Are there any more points that anyone wants to add to either the discussion topics or provide updates or feature group updates, because we are at the end of our agenda, and if there's nothing else, we can get back a few minutes. Okay, I don't see any updates. This was a quick meeting. Thanks everyone for joining. See you next week.